Hello, I'm Salman Rushdie again. I just wanted to point out that all the writers that you've heard tonight will be doing all sorts of other events in the next few days. They'll be doing conversations and panel discussions and so on, and you should check out the program or look on the website, pen.org. Have a look at the program there, and you can go and hear more of them if you've enjoyed this evening. I'm going to read just a few passages from an essay that I wrote in Granta magazine a couple of months ago about the deadly sin of sloth. It's my second favorite deadly sin. I can't read the whole of it because I'm too lazy. So I'll just read 3 or 4 short passages, and then I'll be tired. So the first passage is called For and Against Sloth. Literature has not, on the whole, dealt kindly with sloth. In the Divina Commedia, Dante thinks that those who have accomplished nothing in life are not even worthy of being admitted into hell. Catullus says the following: Otium, Catulle, tibi molestum est. Otio exultas nimiumque gestis. Otium et reges prius et beatas perditit orbes. Don't you agree? Oh, well, I'll translate it, all right. You have nothing to do, Catullus. That's your problem. Through idleness, you run around too cheerfully. Idleness has destroyed kings in the past, and their rich cities too. Montaigne praises the Emperor Vespasian for continuing to govern his empire, even as he lay on his deathbed. An emperor, he said, must die standing. No pilot performs his office by standing still. In Conrad's Nigger of the Narcissus, the title character, James Waite, a black West Indian sailor who falls fatally ill with tuberculosis while his ship is on its way from Bombay to London, is asked why he embarked on such a long journey, knowing, as he must have known, that he was ill. And he makes the famous reply, I must live till I die, mustn't I? No pilot performs his office by standing still. I must live till I die. In Montaigne and Conrad, as in Dante and Catullus, slothfulness is invariably reprehensible. Action is good, inaction an evil, and that's all. But let us note that Montaigne, the author of Against Idleness, used to accuse himself of being slothful, saying that this was the reason why he wrote only little essays rather than full-length books. And so we come to De Quincey, the English opium eater, unashamed of his slothfulness, who describes his account of opium eating and the hallucinations it induces as useful and instructive. He modestly calls himself a philosopher and an intellectual creature and acknowledges no guilt. He gives us accounts of his opium dreams, and they are fine enough, with sufficient phantasmagoria therein to satisfy the most Gothic palate. But then he says of South Asia, my place of origin, that it is cruel, that its cultures make him shudder, that man is a weed in those regions. It is the man who speaks here, not the drug. I am terrified, he says, by the modes of life, the manners, the barrier of utter abhorrence and want of sympathy placed between us by feelings deeper than I can analyze. I could sooner live with lunatics or brute animals, he tells us. He tells me. After that confession, the stuff about his hallucinations feels oddly uninteresting, despite all the monkeys, parrots, and gods that appear in them, to say nothing of the famous leering crocodile that haunts him constantly, the symbol of everything Eastern that he finds so repulsive. The problem lies not in the opium, but in the eater. As the old sailor Singleton says in The Nigger of the Narcissus, ships are all right, it's the men in them. There are worse sins than the deadly ones. Bigotry is high on that list. The second passage is called, in Russian, Oblomovщина. Of course, the best, strongest, funniest, most profound case in favor of sloth without which no examination of the subject would be complete, can be summed up in a single word: Oblomov. Ilya Ilyich Oblomov, the most slothful of all Russia's indolent 19th century landed gentry. And the hero, yes, the hero of the novel by Goncharov that bears his name, is the exact opposite of Proust's insomniac Marcel. Marcel, we know, for a long time used to go to bed early, and then took an unconscionable age, dozens and dozens of drowsy long sentence pages, actually to fall asleep. Oblomov, by contrast, lies in bed all day, sometimes awake, sometimes somnolent. He takes 150 pages, not to fall asleep, but rather to get up. When he is finally forced to rise, he is not wrapped in the soothing cadences of the Proustian sentence. He is not contemplative, but angry, and the reason for his wrath is plain enough. His servant, Zakhar, who has finally lost patience with his horizontal master, is to blame. And Oblomov's rage at the fellow is expressed in brief, direct utterances, shouting, and a fuddled attempt at physical chastisement. We can, of course, understand Oblomov's sloth, his Oblomovchina, his Oblomovism, or Oblomovitis, as the product of his spoiled, effete childhood, or as a metaphor for the decay and torpor of the class he represents. And that's true enough. But such narrow exegeses miss the point, which is that a little Oblomov lives within us all. We long to be allowed to languish for the rest of our lives, to be freed from responsibilities, and to be, yes, happy parasites. Oblomov knows that his far distant estates are in trouble, that their finances need attending to, and that he really ought to travel 1,000 miles to deal with the problems. But no, like Bartleby, his American predecessor, he prefers not to. And again, even though he is in love, and the young lady Olga is delightful, and he really ought to get married, he puts the decision off until she makes it for him and breaks their engagement. He is procrastinating Hamlet as well as Bartleby, and he is all of us. We look at the state of the world, and we wish we too had the option of hiding away. Oblomov hides for us. We look at the opposite sex, and it overwhelms us. Oblomov retreats from it on our behalf. We know our own problems, and we wish they were 1,000 miles away. Oblomov sends them there and refuses to face them, as we cannot, but as we wish we could. Oblomov justifies and validates our sloth. The next little passage is called Linda Evangelista. Linda is a supermodel. No, Linda is the supermodel. Here are the important facts about her. She is known in the industry as the chameleon, but she is not, in fact, the lizard. She was once called the founder of the Supermodel Union, but in fact, no such trade association exists. She told a Vogue journalist, Jonathan Van Meter, in 1990, that we, the supermodels, don't wake up for less than $10,000 a day. This is often misquoted as, I don't get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day. Now, in this interesting sentence, in either version, no fewer than 3 of the 7 deadly sins, superbia, avaritia, and accidia, pride, greed, and sloth, are combined. While a normal reaction to the statement, and indeed to Miss Evangelista herself, might combine elements of luxuria, invidia, and ira, which is to say lust, envy, and anger. Only gula, gluttony, is absent. Not bad. The last passage is called Ilya Ilyich Oblomov and Linda Evangelista. I picture them in separate adjacent beds, in a light-filled, flower-perfumed Rococo bedchamber. Oblomov is trying anxiously not to read the messages of financial urgency his manservant brings him. Linda, feigning sleep, is waiting for the telephone to ring with an offer of more than $10,000 so that she can get up. The telephone rings. The offer is for Oblomov. He will receive $10,000 if he agrees to get out of bed. The offer is large enough to pay off all his estate's debts and leave him happily recumbent without a care in the world. He declines the offer. I prefer not to, he says. They remain in bed. Oblomov is content and drowsy. Linda is unhappy, tense, wide-eyed. But character is destiny, as Heraclitus said, and they are both in the grip of the terrible fate of having to be themselves. The day drifts on. Here we lie, they say silently, almost echoing Martin Luther at the Diet of Worms. We can do no other. They do not move. The manservant Zakhar brings in food on a dented silver tray. But they are both, for different reasons, in the grip of the sin of sloth. Linda, because she has not received a phone call. Oblomov, in spite of the one he did receive. And they do not eat. Now, thank you.